Hey guys, remember to like the video and hit subscribe.
Hey guys, it is 8 in the morning and I touched up my roots yesterday, so I got splotches of dye in my face, but that's fine. I was just ruminating in the shower. And I just wanted to have a little talk, a discussion. I was just gonna do this on Instagram, but I want to hear from more people, so I figured I would make an actual video and ask YouTube as well. I genuinely feel like manipulation and intent and all that should be included in the conversation of assault. For example, about 2 months ago, I had a friend turn out to not be a friend because he did shit I didn't want, he coerced me, all that. He basically went home and then was like, "You've been the worst to me," and then blocked me and hasn't spoken to me since.
Went home and what?
I didn't want, he coerced me, all that. He basically went home and then was like, "You've been the worst to me," and then blocked me and friend because he did shit I didn't want, he coerced me, all that. He basically went home and then was like, "You bring out the worst of me," and then blocked me.
You bring out the worst in me. Oh, okay. Base.
And hasn't spoken to me since. And on one hand, there was a part of me that was like, well, that was assault, but there was another part of me that was like, you didn't fight back, so, you know. And I was basically this man's therapist for 3 years. And as I fight back, and on one hand, there was a part of me that was like, well, that was assault, but there was another part of me that was like, you didn't fucking fight back, so, you know. And I was basically this man's therapist for 3 fucking years. And as I slowly unraveled his story and figured it out and kind of figured out why he does what he does, you know, it was all like a revelation to him, and now he's in therapy, blah, blah, blah. I recently got in contact with somebody he 7 years ago. And as she and I have been talking, it has become blatantly clear that none of what I figured out was a revelation. This man has been doing the same things, he has been using the same excuses, he's been manipulating and lying and coercing for almost a decade. So at that point, it's like, okay, you know, looking into laws and stuff like that, every law is explicitly like, if you did something and then you regret it after, it's not assault. But they don't take into account how good so many predators are at lying and setting up the situations. I found this conversation with him that I actually taken a photo of. Basically, when I got back from Vegas, which is where he did it, we were still friends, but my mind was like, yeah, no, that was fucked up. You need to start, you know, capturing the proof, because this man never said anything unless he was on like video chat or in person. But reading that conversation that I photographed, it was so clear that he knew exactly what to say. Nothing he said was incriminating. Everything was like a... Anyway, basically, the point is, if I had been the only person, I would have been like, okay, that was fucked up. You piece of shit, go to therapy. But it's, you know, discovering that it was all premeditated and it was all planned. And for 3 years, it was just like manipulating and building up to this. And he's been doing it for 7 years. It's kind of like, at that point, 100% it is assault. And then you look at other, you know, this happens quite a lot, where I'm just going to use men and women as an example. You can swap the genders and not all men, but I'm just going to, you know, for example. You know, there's a lot of men, not all, that will date and say things that basically make the person they're dating feel as though, okay, they are looking for long-term, this is something that they're going for. Eventually they reach a point where they're like, okay, yep, I will sleep with this person. That person, woman in the situation, she is consenting to an intimate experience with someone that she has trusted and is getting to know and wants to be with her in the long term and has essentially made her feel that way emotionally.
Oh man, we're going to really rough places with this, aren't we?
And then a lot of times they'll fuck and then the guy will be like, all right, peace. That's assault. You know? And then, you know, if the woman is like, well, okay, now I feel completely used, I feel completely violated, especially when it comes to the things of, you know, you thought you were going to have some kind of sex and then he did something that you didn't fucking want, but then the police are like, but you consented to it, now you're just regretting it afterwards. What do you think? Obviously, this would just open a can of worms for a whole bunch of other problems and, you know, false reports and shit. But I genuinely believe that, like, intent...
Just as a random thing, I guess, generally people, in my personal opinion, I don't have, like, research data on this, in my personal experience, people that are manipulative, I don't think are usually plotting it out. Yeah, I've said this a million times. Usually there's just like a set of actions that they do because they know they get certain responses by doing them. But I think it's pretty rare that a person is like plotting out in the long term, like, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. Like usually there's just, yeah. Also, one of the reasons why I get like really uncomfortable when people start bringing up things like love bombing and stuff is because I find that, not all the time, and love bombing can be a real thing, where your goal is to like overwhelm somebody with like an inappropriate level of gifting, I guess, maybe, or to oversell how you feel for them to get something out of them. But some people will just use love bombing retroactively to explain like the initial rush of new relationship energy or early obsessive shit, which I don't think that counts as love bombing. Like a lot of people when they first meet and first do stuff will like be obsessed with each other for like a few weeks or a month or two. Like it happens. And then people's feelings change or whatever. Like to call that like love bombing or manipulation, I think it's kind of dumb, but.
And manipulation needs to be a part of the conversation when it comes to consent. Especially, you know, when you look into laws, it's like, okay, what counts as assault? Non-consensual penetration. If you look into the laws in Nevada, in Vegas, it is only assault if there was penetration. Otherwise, you have to file under...
I feel like most of these laws have changed at this point. It doesn't have to be penetration for it to be assault now.
What is it? Grossness and lewd behavior? But that's basically if you whipped out your dick in public. Like, so you have to either be flat out... And then there's no other middle ground. I'm fine, as fucked up as it was, and it did make my PTSD go through the roof. And that's another thing. Obviously, anyone watching this that's kind of been through some fucked up emotional manipulation, that leaves you with PTSD as well. You know, it's not just the physical assault that fucks people up. It's the emotional assault. And like so many people consent to things that they didn't actually want. They just did it for the person that they were interested in, and they were like, this might go somewhere. And then if that person was actually a predator, chances are they did shit that you didn't really want, left you feeling kind of skeezy. You're like, maybe this could be okay if they like apologize, and then they're like, all right, peace, and you're like, oh, okay. Feel like I was a but I can't call it that. People are fucked up. Anyway.
Do I want to play? I hate arguing the other side of this because it's already just because when it comes to men and women, people tend to look at it a certain way. But like, if you want to like analyze people who are being manipulative or, well, there's different things at play here. When you talk about manipulation and you talk about abuse of power, I think that these are two different things. Like you can be manipulative. I don't know. Do I really want to get into this right now? I'm not sure if I want to get into this right now. This is all I'm asking. Assume everybody's above age. If a student fucks a teacher to get an A on the test and the teacher gets fired, does anybody ever talk about forcing the student to retake the test, or do they just get to keep the grades? That's what I'm asking. Anybody know? Anybody know the answer to that? Anybody? What is the answer to that question? Because I feel like women will be very manipulative with sex. Men can be very manipulative with things that aren't sex. And also people can just use the things that play to their strengths as well. It's hard sometimes to identify, I guess, like who I like. This is an interaction that I see. I've seen this interaction play out a lot with other people and I am personally. But like, there's this thing that'll happen where person A wants, or fuck it, I'll gender it since this is all going to be mostly gendered this way anyway. Girl wants attention from guy. Guy doesn't want to give attention to girl. Girl starts using sex to get attention from guy because she wants something more, but she knows that sex gets attention from him. And then guy gives her attention. Eventually they bang or whatever enough. And then the guy gets bored or moves on or whatever. And then the girl says, I feel like I got manipulated. And it's like, well, hold on. Why were you banging him if you weren't in your long-term relationship yet? And the girl will be like, well, because he only wanted sex from me. It was like, okay, but then why did you give it to him? This is also, by the way, I am a huge, there's something called a shit test. I am a massive fan of shit testing. Shit testing is just red pill misogyny code language for I don't want you to discover the bullshit that I'm up to before I manage to pull it off and get one over you. I think shit testing is totally fine. If you're a girl and you want to fuck on the first date, I think that's awesome, obviously, and that's great. But if you're a girl and you want to fuck on the first date, but you're like, well, I'm worried that if I bang this guy on the first date, he's just here for sex. I'm not going to find out if he's like actually wanted to date me or not. So I'm going to like arbitrarily withhold sex for 5 dates to see if he's serious. A lot of people get really mad at that. I think that is absolutely 100% A-okay behavior, and I think you should do that. I think that's totally fine. Because if the person isn't interested in a long-term relationship and they're just trying to fuck you or split, well, then they'll get bored and they leave. That's totally fine. I think that people call them shit tests, but I think it's perfectly fine and perfectly valid to see where people are at. But I find that there's like this weird world sometimes where one side will, I don't want to call it baiting with, but they know that the other side seems to be the most interested in that, and so they kind of use the sex to try to get the relationship or whatever, and then the relationship doesn't materialize, and then they feel used and violent. It's like, well, hold on, well, why were you banging the guy? Like, if you hadn't gotten what you wanted yet, were you hoping that it would materialize? Like, it's the opposite of that friend zone and f zone, where a guy will be like, if I'm friendly enough to this girl, if I put enough coins in the machine, then I should be able to, be in a relationship with her, right? Or I should be able to fuck her, right? And the girl's like, well, no, I thought we were just friends. But then women will do the opposite of that, where they'll be like, well, I thought if I fucked him enough, eventually he'd want to date me. It's like, no, why would you ever think that? It's not how that works. I just feel like there's a lot of like gender autism when it comes to this topic, but whatever.
What are your thoughts on this matter? So that's the conversation I want to have. I think that manipulation and long-term, even short-term lying to get what you want needs to be a part of the conversation when it comes to consent. Because some people consent to things and then find out that it was not at all what they thought it was. Does that make sense? So someone consenting to sleep with someone because they're dating and it's going somewhere and they feel safe and that's what it's going to be, that's what they consented to. If that person then has sex with them and is like, if that person then has sex with them and is like, all right, cool, that's all I wanted, you're an idiot for believing my lies, they didn't consent to that. And I'm not saying that's what happened to me, but like just an example, there's a lot of people who have been through this. So for anyone that has experienced this, what do you think? Obviously there's more extreme cases. For some it's like, yeah, that happened, but it wasn't so bad. And for some it's like, yeah, no, I felt completely manipulated and lied to and it's been following me and I can't describe why, because people tell me it's not assault. Anyway.
One thing that's really hard for people to get to is that like things can be bad without also being the worst thing ever. Like it is possible that bad things can happen, but it's not actually the worst thing ever. But anything involving relationships or anything about that. And then, yeah, people want to use like the most charged language possible, but.
I'm running out of battery, so that's perfect timing. Let me know. What do you guys think?
Destiny, there does seem to be a gap between assault and good/acceptable conduct that is difficult to talk about sometimes. So I think she has a point there. I agree with that for sure. I actually tried to think about this like as a thought experiment. I think it's a really interesting question to think of. When would we say that there's been like a I don't know if you'd call it rape, has occurred, right? So let's say, for instance, you tell somebody like, oh yeah, well, like the person's like, oh, do you have an STD test? And the guy's like, no, or yeah, I do, I'm clean, and he has HIV, and then he fucks the girl. Like, would people consider that like assault? I don't know. I think people, it's really close, if not over the line. Stealthing, right? Pulling a condom off in the middle of fuck. I think people would consider that at least assault, right? Having